Assalamu alaikum all, and good afternoon. I think I choose a topic that is one of the latest things. I hope I will cover it well. US dollar facing BRICS currency. I think lately we have seen the BRICS and BRICS Plus become after, same like OPEC Plus. BRICS actually started almost in 2001. We started hearing the BRICS after the economist from Goldman Sachs and Econel start like saying that those countries, they will boom in the future. Since then, we have seen the BRIC only. Then later on, South Africa joined, become BRICS. Lately, they start like we can say like many countries, they start like thinking about joining the BRICS and what we will get if we join that group. I think more than 40 countries showed interest to join. Lately, only 6 countries, they allowed them to join, which is this very good move. By joining Saudi Arabia, UAE, Iran, Argentina, also Ethiopia, Egypt. So 2 in Africa, 1 in South America, 1 in Asia. So it's very good diversity. The thing moved totally. If BRICS before used like almost half of the population of the world, now it's increased a little bit. Before they used to do like only 16% of the world trade, now increased with all oil producers and oil exporters. Also away from that, their reserve and also their defense spending as well. That's why we have seen those things in South Africa. It was on the table that the food security, also they will start talking about the defense among the group itself, and also they start talking about energy security, which is very good that they joined Saudi Arabia and UAE, they came on board, which is one of the main producers and exporter of oil. For sure, we have to leave the disclaimer there. BRICS. I think if we start talking about Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, we know that Brazil, they are booming lately in the past 20 years. We know that Russia, after even UK invasion, they are still doing good, their economy. India, one of the fast-growing country, and we know that it will be still the same even this year. They are still the highest with 6.5 growth. China, even though they are facing a lot, but they are doing economic reform. South Africa is there, started. Yes, it's not the top now in Africa, but after joining Egypt and Ethiopia, and later on maybe Algeria and others, it will gain a lot of momentum there. How it started. Just now, we know that those guys, they sat down on a table talking about food security, energy security, and they start talking also about digital currency or one single currency among the BRICS. But how that started? It was in the table there or not? Now we will see the Brazilian president, Lula da Silva, lately he came back on board in 2021 election. The guys start talking again about dollarization and getting away from the dollar. He starts saying that those countries that they don't use the dollar, why they should use it in their trade? Why we should use the dollar since we are not so much dependent on that one? He was the one proposing this thing. If you check South African official, they say this wasn't in the table. The second one, Indian, also official, he said that we prefer to do a trade by our local currency. Russian president, he said we better, if there is any way to be away from the dollar, which will be good. China, they didn't comment about that. So only the Brazilian president put that in a table. Because the rest of the group, they know that it's not easy to get away from the dollar. And when you propose a currency, you need to have specific rules and mechanism to put that one. Now we will check that. This is what the group, again, is the dollar. And they think they might fight the dollar and at least try to break the dollar demonization. I don't know how many of you here believe the BRICS group, they might break the dollar demonization. Raise hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Now you'll see the obstacles that they're going to face, because it's not that easy as you think. What are the challenges in setting BRICS currency? We know that BRICS currency, if it came out, especially by the Brazilian president, it came out as a political project, because we know that technically is not that easy. Okay, this group came out against the G7 and the Western side. They want to be away totally from the dollar, away totally from the benefits of the G7s. They want their own benefits. We are the highest population. We are the main producers of the commodities. So why not we gain some strength more than the other countries? But building up the projects, especially we get a comment from the South African central governors. I think the name there, you can read it. It's very hard to read. If you want to have it, you need a banking union. And also you need a physical union. At the same time, you need a macroeconomic convergence, which is why, because if you need to make a one central bank for the digital currency or the one single currency for the BRICS, you need one central bank. You need also a physical policy that's very clear and is well known, and you can use it. Second thing, there is a big macroeconomic convergence between the countries. China is really far there with 18 trillion GDP. India is there with 3 trillion and more. You find South Africa is really far. Even the countries they joined, there is a big convergence in the microeconomy itself. So you need to bring them together. He also added that you need a disciplining mechanism. Currently, we saw that the euro, they start having a hard time with BRICS after they left the euro itself. So even Italy, when they face an issue, when Greece also face an issue, they want to have a mechanism that no one can get out of the group. Okay, it's easy to get in, it's easy to propose that, but what happens if one country decides to leave? Say China, then what will happen? Trade balance there is no trade balance like equal trade balance between the countries. Like you are proposing, these countries, they have to have a trade or use the local currency in the trade, but there is not that much trade balance. We know that all the BRICS countries, they have a big trade with China itself, but between them, they don't have that much. We know that India and Argentina, there is not that much trade balance. But we know, per se, Brazil and China, they have a trade balance, yes, in the side of Brazil, but at the end, that there is somehow an equal trade balance. But what about South Africa and India? What about South Africa and others? There is not that much trade between them. So why this is all is in favor of China itself. Per se, my country and your country, we are exporting and importing. Exporting by 100 million, and you are importing to me more than 1 billion. So it's very hard to find. We settle the 100 between us by our local currency, but the balance we have to go back again to the dollar. So it's very hard to do. Is the dollar really in trouble? We're going to see some charts, and especially about the dollar reserve and others. We will see how is it. Is the dollar really affected by all this talk? It's not the first time we hear about this. We hear about this, I think 7, 8 times. I'm in this market for 14 years, and I heard this at least 8 times. Every time the country, they're saying we need to be away from the dollar, we need to propose something new, we need to have a union. The BRICS itself is since when? Since 2010, they're doing serious things to get away from the dollar. Is it really making effect on the dollar? That's what we're going to see. Lately, this is start gaining some momentum, especially after Russian get a lot of sanction imposed against them after, for sure, Ukraine invasion. And they are trying to propose to the world and propose to the country, BRICS country, to be really away from the dollar and try to make a new monetary system in the world. The greenback since then, since 20 years, only lost 11% from the reserve. So the greenback is still used, I mean the dollar itself is still used as a reserve currency. The dollar still dominates the global trade. By the Bank of International Settlement, they're saying that still 90% of the trade is done by the dollar itself. Even though it's 80 or 90, still is a very high percentage. De-dollarization would need countless importers, exporters, lenders, borrowers. You need all of them to sit down in a table and they decide on that currency to use it, either in trade or either in loans or either in to be like something you can trust. Those are not in the table. Only a few countries out of this, how many hundred countries we have, only some of them, they are in a table to discuss that. Global foreign reserve by currency. In first quarter of 1999, the dollar reserve in central banks used to be 71.2%. That's 20 years ago, or even more than 20 years ago. Last quarter of 2022, it went down to 58.4, means lost almost 10 to 11%. That's in 20 years, with all those countries that are trying hardly to fight the dollar. That means they are losing 0.5% per year. The good thing, this is the last quarter of 2022. In the first half of 2023, the dollar gained back again 1%. So now it's 58.4, but now it becomes 59.6 even. So that means even with this talk in this half, the first half of the year, that we have to get away from the dollar is really hurting the emerging markets, we have to get away from that, but at the end, still the dollar gained some trust from some countries and they are really buying the dollar. Yes, it lost a little bit to the euro. You can see the green. Yes, the Chinese yuan came in with a 2.7%. And also we see the pound still there. Then the commodities currencies are there also. What about the international monetary system? How is the dollar compared to the foreign exchange reserve? We can see that it's still almost near 60%. In international debt, it's still around more than 62%. The euro is there. International loans, still the dollar dominating. Foreign exchange turnover, still the dollar there. Global payment system, which is the SWIFT, that Russia kicked out of it, still the dollar there and euro. So in general, the dollar in yellow is still dominating all things, either in loans, either in reserve, or either in payment system. Dollar dominating global trading. In 2019, the dollar was in that range, and also in 2022, like 3 years, the dollar is still there and even gain a little bit in global trading. Means there is a still big trust in the dollar, and nobody's trying to get away from the dollar. In reality, yes, we get a lot of talks about that, but at the end, nobody is doing a serious thing about that. Everyone is happy with the current thing, because if you guys see China become one of also the global currencies, it's there. They have a big trade balance between many countries, but still they don't want their currency to be there as a dominant currency. Why? Because they prefer always to play with the FX. When the Chinese yuan reach 7.2 or 7 or above 7, they try to decrease it or try to play with it. So this intervention is very easy when you are there and in control of your currency. But if that currency become a world currency, which is same like the dollar, that's why you can see the Fed sometimes is like very afraid to increase the rate and very afraid to shock the market. When the market expecting almost 99% or more that the interest rate might be hold or increase, the Fed always don't like to shock the market. Why? Because you know the dollar is a dominant currency, and there is many countries depend on that, especially the Gulf. We can see that after they increase the interest rate, next day, the GCC start increasing the interest rate. See Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE, Oman, sometimes Jordan, sometimes Kuwait even. Even they have a basket of currencies, but still, sometimes they increase it. So in general, the dollar is still there. Even in the past 3 years, we are still there. The euro lost a little bit, the yen is there, the pound is there. So everyone is trying to keep their percentage. So the dollar is still there, no matter what we do. It's a very nice chart. The US dollar facing the BRICS currency index. This chart I don't think is easy to find. Okay, the dollar against USD Brazilian real, against Russian ruble, against Indian rupee, against Chinese yuan, and against South African rand. We can see that, I think the technical guys, you will see very clear cup and handler. That means it might go up. That means the dollar is still there and is very strong even against other currencies. Lately, we have seen the DXY increasing from 99% all the way to 106 this morning. It already break the support, sorry, the resistance that is like it holds since November 2022. Means the dollar against those currencies, yes, they're making a lot of pressure on those currencies, but it's still there. And it still have some trust. Because whatever the Fed do, people are still buying the dollar as a safe haven. How can investor prepare for new BRICS currency? Yes, we talked about it now. And we know that it's not easy to kick the dollar out of the equation. And the dollar is still there. And in 20 years, just lost 10 to 11% of the reserve. But what will happen if the BRICS itself gain a lot of momentum? Why erupt? Out of sudden, those 40 countries, they showed interest, out of sudden they joined. What will happen? What are we going to do? We as the traders and investors, what are we going to do? We cannot control that, but we have to play with the current situation. So what should we do? The only thing that we can do as a traders and investors to diversify our exposure. Find anything that related to the BRICS itself or something away from the dollar, something like bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, related to the BRICS itself and invest on it. That's the only way to hedge yourself against that thing, okay? Invest in commodities like gold and silver, which is still there. Every time we can see in the past 15 to 20 years, the dollar never fell only 2 times to give you a positive return from the first day of the year till the end of the day of the year. So every year, the dollar is still giving a positive return. In the past 20 years, only 2 or 3 times they failed to do so. That means the dollar is still there, sorry, the gold is still there, and is still preferred as a hedge against whatever is happening in the world. Gain some exposure on a BRICS equity market through the ETFs. We know that lately Saudi joined, UAE joined, Egypt also, especially Saudi and GCC in general, their stock market gained a lot of momentum. They're almost passing 4.4 trillion now, especially Saudi after the IPO of Aramco. UAE also after the IPO of, we know that Diwa, we know Empower, we know Salik, we know all this. And even some companies are proposed to be listed next year. This will make the stocks market in the GCC will be much preferred than others. So at least have some exposure in that one. Consider alternative investments such as real estate and private equities. We know how the real estate is booming here in Dubai now compared to UK and what's happening in UK, compared to the US and also the mortgage rate that reached 7.25%. It's very hard to deal with that. That's why at least you can see the real estate market here is booming somehow. So this is one of like 5 or 6 ways at least to diversify your portfolio and try to hedge yourself against whatever going to happen. Because we cannot control that. We know the countries that are trying to do whatever, especially Russia. There is no return back for Russia from this. They have to find something away from the dollar. They have to find any way of a settlement, of a payment between them and India at least. The biggest biggest importer of Russian oil now. We know that India before this, they never import oil from Russia. They are not number one. Russia used to be down there. Iraq was there, UAE, Saudi. Now out of sudden, Russian oil moved from down all the way to the top. How's the payment system going to be? Is it going to be in rupiah? Is it going to be in dirham? Which is dirham is backed by a dollar at the end. So you are not far away from it. So no matter what you do, even the new bank development, the head of monetary policy in the new bank development, which is the bank proposed by the BRICS, he said it's not easy to get away from the dollar. We need at least 10 to 15 years to propose a new currency that can be used in investment and in a trade balance between the BRICS group itself. So that means it's not something easy to get away from it. So in general, what we say that the dollar is still there. People they have a big trust in dollar. It's still widely used. Central banks still prefer the dollar, even though they're trying to get away from the dollar with gold. There is I think net buying in most of the central banks in trying to add more gold to their reserve, but still they're holding the dollar. And the funny thing is China, they're still holding 3.2 trillion of dollars and is increasing month by month. 3.2 trillion of dollars. Used to be like 1 year ago, 3.1 and even less. Out of sudden now they have 3.2 trillion of dollar reserve, the biggest dollar reserve, which is China's there in BRICS. So no matter what countries do, they cannot find a suitable currency that can play the role of the dollar in a trade, in a loan, in a reserve. No other countries are proposing their currency to be there. China, they don't want. India, they cannot. GCC, they cannot form even one single currency. They cannot propose also their currencies is already backed by dollar. So nobody want to play that role. Nobody want to be like their central bank have to care about whatever happens in the world. We know that the Fed lately, they increased the rate almost 12 to 13 times in one single year. Why? Because to fight the inflation inside the US. I have issues inside my country. I'm increasing the interest rate and the dollar went all the way high from 9,900 all the way to 106. Why? Because I need to fight the inflation. But at the same time, I have to care about other countries that like Egypt that is very hurt by this. Why? Because they're trying to pay their loans in dollars and the dollar is really gaining a lot of gain and it's very hard for them to get the dollar. What about Argentina? Lately, they proposed that to export their meat to China and get it back in yuan to pay their debts. So some countries, they're trying really to fight this, but sometimes it's very hard to fight it. In general, the dollar is there. It's very hard to lose it in the meantime. In the coming 10 to 15 years, we will see the dollar. And it is good to diversify away from the dollar, from 70% to become 50-something, even to become 40. It's still a dominance, but it's better to diversify it a little bit and try to be away, have a less exposure on dollar. I hope I deliver it well, and I will open Q&A if anyone has a question.
So, good evening. This is Muhammad Awais from Pakistan. I started my trading journey at 4 years ago. I built a team and trained that persons how to trade Forex, how to train people to trade in Forex. I have had experience with a broker which is WTI. Yes, sorry. The main thing is that every broker will provide you leverage, will provide you security. They will show you we have a license, we have payment gateways, and many more things. So, what the things which will secure the investors? What thing which will secure the traders? Like they scammed us about $500,000 in just 2 years.
It's not a question.
Yes.
It's not a question.
So, I want to make a suggestion from you. Which thing that we should be aware from these brokers and these companies which present the forex trading?
I didn't get your question seriously. Is it related to this or something totally different?
No, it's just a general question that I want a suggestion from you.
Visit us, number 9 booth. We are very well regulated broker. Next TB.
Thank you.
Okay, so I heard what you said about you don't believe that the BRICS could come up with a currency due to how everything is backed by the US dollar and the reserve and so forth. If we start by looking at commodities or looking at gold specifically, over the past 2 years, China and Russia have bought more gold in the past 2 years than they've bought in the history of the past 16 years combined. If we put into what's going on with Saudi Arabia and them reducing about 1 million barrels of oil per day, and you look at the pressure that's being put, you add that into what China is doing by dumping a lot of US bonds, which ironically with their yuan actually being devalued and decreasing in value, they're selling bonds which would strengthen the US dollar, which would actually make their yuan even a lot more weaker. All that together would get me to the conclusion that they don't really care to devalue your yuan as much as they want to put pressure on the US economy. They want to, okay, dollar strengths short term, but then that would allow them to actually create whatever digital currency that they want backed by the commodities, and this is why they've been accumulating so much gold. The Bank of International Settlement said in 2025, CBDCs are going to be the thing. So what is the coincidence that all this is just orchestrated? Let's crash the current fiat system, let people beg for a different solution. Now we can come up with CBDCs and the digital currencies. As a result, we no longer need to depend on the dollar, and the petrodollar is toast. As a result, all these currencies or all these countries that were inflating their currency to pay for debt and pay for commodities no longer need to do so. And you can take the power away from the global reserve currency, which is going to crash. We look at what the dollar is doing, probably puts a high in Q2 of 2024, would be a manipulative move, and then we get the distribution lower across the end of the year. Then everybody in the United States would be like, you know what? Thank you, central banks. We want CBDCs. Game over. BRICS take over. Saudi Arabia is the general power. And it's the end of an era for the United States. Power shifts from the west to the east.
Okay. Very long question. But anyway, we know about the CBDs, and I think most of you heard about it. And yes, it's a proposed and still not settled yet. And it might hurt the commercial banks more than changing the equation itself, okay? Because it's just changing the normal currency to a digital currency. It will only hurt the commercial banks. It will not like something totally change the idea of dollar dominization. Second thing, the currency itself to be backed by commodities, which is like gold and oil, okay, which is proposed by Russia and China. Okay, to be backed by gold, okay, it's very hard nowadays to do it. Why? Because of since 1972 and after all these Bretton Woods things happened, there is a big inflation happening in the market. There is a lot of printing happen. Okay, the current liquidity in the market cannot be backed by gold with the current production. With the current gold we have in the central banks, in the market, with a production of more than 3,100 in the average in the past 10 years, that's how many tons we produce per year. 3,100. That is not enough to back some currency, even one single currency, by total gold, okay? What about BRICS currency, which is a very big currency for like how many countries now? BRICS plus, okay? So it's not easy to cover that one. Even though with oil, we know that the reserve of oil currently is a reserve in the ground, okay? There is no current, it's not all the oil is out. It's yes, we can see the value of Aramco is very high. Why? Because they have a lot of reserve in oil, okay? It's down there in the ground, and this is how the evaluation happened. So if you propose a currency to be backed by current commodity, you need to have it physical there, okay? Gold cannot play this role, silver cannot play it, copper, platinum, whatever other commodities cannot play that role. So it has to be like a total new currency that has a lot of, like a big accept from like 40 countries, 50 countries, 60 countries. There is a union between them. There is no like political issues between them. There is no big convergence between the economies. So in general, it's not easy to get away by like just proposing a digital currency, or by like just like proposing CBDs, or like what about the trade? How are we going to trade with each other? Yes, the CBDs is still, we can see that the yuan, digital yuan came in, but it's still as yuan. So at the end, it's still backed by whatever it is, and also is controlled by the central bank of China, Public People of China. So it's not easy technically, who knows about the physical and monetary policy, it's not easy to get away from that currency out of sudden to move totally to a new currency that has no like union, no bank, no mechanism, no rules. It's very hard. So just proposing to be backed partially by commodities. Yes, we can see that many central banks in the past 6-7 years, they are net buyer more than net seller. Okay, especially China, they move almost like the 5-6 years. They are just buying, moving more than 2010, the last 2-3 months, more than 2010 tons. So yes, but this is a point of diversifying the portfolio. It's like, same like Russia. Russia, since they did with the last one in 2008, they know that they might get into the war with the Ukraine. That's why they start getting more gold and trying to be away from the dollar, because later on they know that there is $330 billion is blocked for them. So how to prevent and how to get away from that is by diversifying my portfolio. It's just diversifying, but it's not getting away totally from it. I hope that covered it. Thanks a lot. Thank you, guys.